Arsenal have beaten Newcastle 2-1 in what was, as always is, a physical game at St James's Park. We're going to look back at the game, how Mikel set up the team, the goals, and all the key talking points from an eventful game. We're then going to look ahead to our second Champions League game this Wednesday against Olympiacos at the Emirates. What should we expect from the Greek champions, and how should we line up? Let's get going on episode 19 of Red Lines and Half Spaces. Welcome to episode 19 of Red Lines Half Spaces. And it's always good to do a show when you've won. And what a hard-fought victory it was. 2-1 to Arsenal at St James's Park. But here's something else that's hard-fought. It's my co-host, Joe. Did that make any sense, Joe, whatsoever?
No, but I hope the listeners appreciate what you're trying to do, Yeamin. All we ask for is 10 out of 10 in effort.
I know. Look, I'm trying to give. My brain will get to it at some point. I'll use some AI or something like that, people, to make something a bit more thing. How do I make it? My prompt will be how to make more.
How to speak coherent English.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. I resent that. But yeah, Joe. How you been?
It's had a long weekend, but Arsenal made it all the better, mate. They really did.
Not until the 86th minute, really, did it? I mean,
not until the 86th minute. I mean, it was a great weekend though. There's a lot of obviously Ryder Cup was on for the golf lovers out there. That was spectacular and almost went very south on the Sunday. But no, that was great watching that. Then obviously the Arsenal turned it around in terms of a hate watch weekend. Could have got any better,
it was
really.
A perfect weekend. All our rivals lost, didn't they?
Not a single one of them got a result that was any
weekend.
Good. So,
what a weekend. This is one of those weekends where it
was a magical weekend, mate. I would have loved to have. The only thing that could have made it better was being at St James's Park. Obviously, didn't have that luxury. But I mean, everything else, there are very few weekends like this in the year when everything just goes to plan.
Absolutely.
And everything's went to plan. The Ryder Cup was obviously, like I said, that was a great watch and a great win. The England rugby ladies obviously winning, they won as well. So it's just, in terms of sport, mate, it was a cracking weekend.
Well, why don't we cover off on obviously the hate watch a little bit, and let's preface the Newcastle game. So, Joe, going into the Newcastle game, it had been a good weekend for us, as you just said. Our rivals, so let's look at them. Liverpool, the primary rival, who you think will be the ones to, we'll be in a title race with them, lost 2-1 against Palace, and it wasn't a surprise victory. I think Palace actually deserved the game.
Yeah.
But then also you've got Man City won, and they should have done against Burnley. That was to be expected. Chelsea also suffering defeat down to, again, they're going down to 10 men, I think it was, wasn't it? They went down to 10 men again. So again, there's questions about discipline. Then obviously Tottenham drawing with Wolves, which was a bit of a surprise, given that it was at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But generally, Joe, this set us up very well for the Newcastle game, didn't it? But as we talked about in our preview show, this is never an easy place to go to, is it, Joe? I mean, how were you feeling going into this? We talked about this. People put this as it's a must win. And we put it as a must win because of the need to get back on the horse, if we call it that. Not for the title necessarily, for me personally. I don't know how you felt about it, but we needed to make a statement as in we are in the title race. We can go to these places and win with this squad. How did you feel going into this game, Joe?
Before all the other results, so obviously in the preview show, I think we both kind of predicted that this was going to be a very tricky game. Typically, we've gone up to Newcastle and we've struggled. Obviously, last year in the sort of the league game, we struggled up there. We had difficulties against them in the League Cup. Obviously, they dumped us out of that quite convincingly. We had plenty of chances, but I mean, it's always a difficult game. It's a very raucous atmosphere all the time up there. I feel like Newcastle get refereed differently at St James's Park. I feel like there's a bit more leeway with sort of their physical approach to the game, which isn't a problem. It's just that it's just one of those things. You get refereed differently at different grounds that you go to. It's just worth noting that obviously I think they are allowed to be more physical in that kind of environment, which is something you have to obviously factor in. So going into it, it was always going to be difficult. I think we both predicted that we'd win, but I don't think either of us would have been surprised by sort of a draw, maybe even a loss, just because it is such typically a difficult ground for us to go to. Given the additions we'd made in the transfer window, I felt like we had more going up there than we've had previously, which I think gave us a bit of confidence that okay, it might be a difficult game, but we've got more options to come on this time and potentially change a game or sort of play in a different way. But once the other results came in, I think the pressure on us really did go up another level because I think we had to win the game regardless. But with that Liverpool result, I think that then just said, okay, now's your opportunity to what could have been potentially an 8-point gap is now a 2-point gap. So it really loaded the pressure onto the players. And I've got to say, obviously we'll talk more about the game, but I think they acquitted themselves in that game absolutely brilliantly. I thought it was a fantastic performance. But yeah, then let's go into it. Yeah, as soon as we're there, I've already kicked off. Let's go.
So let's look at the lineup, as you said, Joe. And what the talking point was, how is he going to line up? Is he going to go physical? We advocated, you and I did this on the Latte Foam as well. I advocated do not engage them. Don't go for the three-man stodge midfield, as you call it rightly, of Mikel Merino, and we'll get onto Mikel Merino in a little bit. Mikel Merino, Martin Zubimendi and Declan Rice. And he didn't. He lined up, there was an interesting change to the lineup, which I didn't think would happen, but let's go through it. So goalkeeper David Raya, no issues there. Back four of Timber, Mosquera, Gabriel, Calafiori. The midfield, or Mosquera coming is a bit of a question. Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice, and Eberechi Eze starting into the midfield, which we'll get your thoughts on. Bukayo Saka, Leandro Trossard again starting, which is an interesting one, and Victor Gyökeres up front. Joe, I want to touch on a few questions from this one. Christian Mosquera starting. I don't think we had any issues with him starting, but I think as the game started to evolve, there were questions, and unfortunately he was culpable indirectly for the goal. He's a young lad, but this was probably not his greatest performance, was it?
No, I mean, I don't think it was a bad performance by any stretch of imagination. I don't think it was sort of a poor performance. I think it was, if it wasn't for obviously sort of the shanked pass back to Raya that led to their goal, I think people probably would look at it as like a fairly average performance. I think it's just been influenced somewhat by obviously the fact that he's kind of error led to the goal, if you like. I personally would probably, I know he was the hero of the day in the end, but I'd probably hold Gabriel a bit more culpable for the goal. So I just feel like
the push. You mean the push?
Yeah,
and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that as the incident.
Yeah, we'll go into it. But yeah, I don't think Mosquera had a bad game. Coming in for Saliba, obviously not a problem with it. If Saliba's still sort of carrying that knock, then I'd much rather he was kind of rested and brought back to sort of full fitness. Because we don't need to rush him now. We've got a player who can more than sort of do a good job. But yeah, just it's another difficult ground to go to. It's a very different sort of game than he's probably used to coming from Spain. But I thought he was fine. Obviously, other than the mistake, that wasn't ideal. But going into the game, I had no sort of concerns about him, and I think overall his performance, I think you'd say it was fine.
And then the other one I want to touch on before I touch upon the midfield is Leandro Trossard. I said this. It's the cycle of Trossard, isn't it? That he comes in, doesn't do well, gets rotated out, comes on as a sub, scores, then comes back in again, and so it proved my wheel of Trossard continues. He was okay. I don't think he was anything special today. He had that one chance where he cracked it against the post. But what did you think of Trossard's selection in that lineup over Martinelli, for example?
It's a weird one. I personally would go with Martinelli. Just I think he sort of, I like his profile more. I like the pace. I like sort of more more of a runner. And I think he would have offered probably a bit more defensively as well. So that would have been my preference. But I think again, sort of similar to Mosquera. I think Trossard was fine. I don't think he had a bad game. There was a few moments where you saw his quality. I think he should have done better with the finish. He looked like he just sort of skewed it a little bit. I would have expected him to put that away, but I mean, the second half he put a lovely little ball through to Declan Rice on sort of inside the box, which showed kind of what he can offer out there. And I think he linked up quite nicely with Eze and obviously Odegaard when he came on eventually. I think saw their sort of the quality of Trossard. Like I said, personally, I'd go for Martinelli over him just because I prefer that profile of player. But again, without being outstanding, I think he was fine. Again, similar to Mosquera.
Yeah, and then the last one was obviously the midfield, which we've talked about on numerous shows about the midfield. But this time he went with a midfield of Zubimendi, Rice, and Eberechi Eze in the creative position, if we call it that, the 8 or the 10, whatever you want to call it. I thought actually Eze had a very good game. I thought he should have scored. He should have actually had 2 because he had Nick Pope, and Nick Pope was pretty much Newcastle's saviour. Absolutely. Yeah, I think his touch, his movement, his guile, just something different to unseat the Newcastle midfield, which I didn't think was particularly amazing that day. I thought Tonali was probably their best player, but I thought Eze had a very good game. How did you look at his game, Joe?
Yeah, he was brilliant, wasn't he? Really, really good game. I would say just look at. I haven't seen us sort of play that kind of free flowing football that we was doing at St James's Park for a long time, and I think you have to sort of say that Eze was a massive part of that. And I think that midfield three, you saw how well it will work for us. I mean, some of the football at times was brilliant. It was Newcastle have been one of the best teams defensively this season. I think if you look at their stats, they've conceded very few goals, and for us to create the amount of opportunities that we did, I think it's a testament to the players and how well sort of drilled the system was as well. Because I've not seen anyone do that to Newcastle yet this season. But yeah, if it wasn't for Nick Pope, mate, like you said, Eze would have had at least 1, maybe 2.
I like that. I like
thought
that about him, that he's just hovering at the edge of the box, waiting for it, because he's got such good technique that you thought, okay, he's going to have a crack at this, and he's really good at that. That's where that's where his specialty lies, isn't it? Just hanging just outside the box
he just knows where to be, doesn't he? He just knows the right sort of areas to kind of loiter in. Doesn't always need to go running into the box. Sometimes standing still creates you more space than running does. So yeah, and it's going to be such a valuable weapon for us, because if it wasn't for Nick Pope, he would have had 2. And yeah, without Nick Pope, we're looking good.
Yeah. So let's go into the stats, because I think it tells a very good story about the game. Ball possession, 63% to Arsenal, 37% to Newcastle. I think it showed there, Joe, how much we not only controlled the game, but actually how poor Newcastle were in terms of their approach to this game. What would you say on that stat alone? It just seems like Newcastle really didn't want to pass the ball, or couldn't even. What do you think? Is it that they couldn't, or that we were just, they didn't want to, or that we were too good at pincering them in and just controlling the flow of the ball?
I think it's probably a bit of both. I think we started really well. I think you have to give us quite a bit of credit, because I think our start to the game was fantastic. Other than sort of a bit of a 10, 15-minute spell around the Newcastle goal when we kind of lost our heads a little bit, I feel like we was really in control of that game. Similar to how we were at Anfield. We didn't really give Liverpool much. I think we sort of dictated a lot of the game and had the ball and kind of really took the sting out of the game. And I feel like we did that for a spell. So I think really we should probably give ourselves a bit of credit. I know a lot of the time we'd like to sort of focus on the opposition, this and that. But I think in this instance, we can say, do you know what? We just done a really good job of dealing with the ball. And obviously when we have so much of the ball, the other team then feel like when they get it, it is a bit panicked, because you've not had the ball for so long. Okay, we need to do something with it now. And you just kind of rush things. You don't have that sort of confidence and that kind of natural flow that I feel like we had at the start of the game. So no, full credit to Arsenal. I thought we started really well, and I think that's what ultimately was Newcastle's downfall.
And then looking at the rest of the stats, because again, they tell a story. Total shots, Newcastle 8, Arsenal 20. We'll come on to that. Shots on target, 7 to Arsenal, 3 to Newcastle. Big chances, 4 to Arsenal, 1 to Newcastle. Big chances missed, 0 for Newcastle, and big chances missed for us, 3. Accurate passes, 405 with an 82%, completion rate. Newcastle 194 with a 70% completion rate. Fouls, actually, we caused more fouls, but I'm going to get into this. Fouls, Newcastle committed 8, Arsenal 9. Corners 12 for Arsenal, 7 for Newcastle. So, Joe, look, the key thing I want to talk about, just leading into that conversation that you just had before, total shots 20. We dominated the game, didn't we, really? We should have been. Newcastle are a very good defensive unit, but Nick Pope was absolutely in world-class form that day, wasn't he? Because we had 20 shots, 7 on target. Eze twice, should have had 2, but Nick Pope was unreal, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Always on.
I think it's sort of typical of what we do, isn't it? We kind of pepper the goal, and the goalkeepers always seems to have outstanding games against us. It's sort of like an Arsenal thing.
So annoying.
But yeah, I mean, fair play to him to keep him going, because I think a lot of the time what can happen is I think we probably even had it as fans. You had that kind of feeling of, oh, here we go again, not our day. But fair play to the players, because they kept going, kept cracking on, and eventually, obviously, got the goals to obviously give us the 3 points. But I think you need to say that Nick Pope was absolutely outstanding. The Trossard one that hit the post, obviously, he wouldn't have saved that. He was well beaten. But the save from Eze, the first one in particular, got down really well.
Low down.
Really low down. Yeah, that was an outstanding save. So second Eze one, I'd expect him to save it. If it went in, I'd kind of have questions. I think it wasn't too far in the corner, and he had a good sight of it. The Timbers header in the second half, I thought we'd done really well with that as well. So, yeah, like I said at the start, mate, no one's done that to Newcastle yet, especially at St James's Park, to really sort of have that kind of dominance over them, if you like. I know the scoreline doesn't reflect that, but we were dominant, and massive credit to Arsenal, because that was a really, really top performance. Under big pressure as well, like we said, with the results from the weekend going into it, and the talk of it being a title decider 6 games in, which is wild. But this is kind of the world we live in now, that if a team if you slip 5 or 6 points, it's very difficult to make up now, because you've got, very cliche, but the Premier League, every game's a battle now. There aren't any easy games anymore, really. So, yeah, they handled the pressure really well, and yeah, what a performance.
Yeah, and this. Look, let's preface this a little bit by saying that the Newcastle versus Liverpool game was more chaotic, and Liverpool scored more goals, but Newcastle's defence was nowhere near what it was today. I thought Malik Thiaw actually was excellent in this game as well. I really like him. I've liked him since he was at AC Milan. But it felt like that was more chaotic because of the whole, Alexander Isak situation. They hadn't signed many players, and they lacked a focal point. So they really were struggling at that point. And Liverpool made use of that chaos effectively to develop that. This game was, as you said, Joe, dominance. And it was very different, wasn't it, Joe? It was more of a case of we were putting the pressure, and Nick Pope was effectively having a worldie on that day, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, like I said, mate, Nick Pope, just what a performance from him. If it wasn't for him, it probably would have been a fairly comfortable Arsenal win. We haven't spoken about the penalty yet, but I assume that content is coming. That was another big moment. But yeah, I think, like I said, on another day, if everything goes well for us, we could win that potentially 3 or 4-0, and then what a result, and what a message that is to the rest of the league. But at the end of the day, mate, we played really well, got the 3 points. That is ultimately the only thing that matters. And now, moving forwards, we go into a set of fixtures which is kinder than what the start has been. I'm not sure saying easier is the right way to put it, but it's definitely a kinder set of fixtures. And rather than going into them off the back of a loss or a draw, we're going in off the back of a really good win and a really good performance. And I think that will be a really good platform for us going into sort of the next 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we want, that kind of dominance in the defence, keeping the game controlled, but having the attacking intent to make use of the chances. That's what we need, isn't it, in these games? That we good defensively, we already know that. That's not our problem. Our problem is obviously scoring the right amount of goals. But Joe, let's take a look at a few of the incidences, because there's a numerous amount of them. We knew this already from the bat, but Newcastle came with their usual very physical approach. How did you view the game physically? Because I thought there were points at which, as you said, they are reffed differently at St James Park. I thought there were some certainly over physical challenges. The example that reaches out to me is Victor Gyökeres, who actually I thought had a very good game in terms of going up against that defense and working that defense, was being pulled literally by the face from Jamal Lascelles, wasn't it? How did that get missed? I don't. But it's this overtly first minute Joe Linton on Saka. You were like, oh my god, that's going to be, and it just continued through the game. It's what you expect, isn't it, kind of, Joe? But were they towing the line a little bit? Is it a bit weird that they got less fouls than we did? It just feels weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, going to St James is going to be a physical game. They know what it's like. I mean, we've been up before. We've seen Bruno Guimaraes elbow Jorginho in the back of the head, nothing given. You've seen, obviously, it's just, yeah, I mean, it happens, doesn't it? I mean, when we went to sort of Stoke back in the day, we knew what we'd get there. When you go to Newcastle, we kind of know what you're going to get there. And it's always a physical game, but it's the VAR stuff, mate, I find very strange. Because obviously there was like you said, Victor Gyökeres getting pulled down by the face, doesn't get looked at. Obviously, they scrutinised the penalty for what felt about 25 minutes. And then, to be fair, on sort of the flip side, the Gabriel incident just after with Watermarder, when he's sort of running and his hand sort of goes towards his face. And it's weird what things are looked at now, what's not looked at, and what's deemed sort of worthy of a review and what's sort of just brushed off. And it's just very weird, mate. I don't really know anymore where we stand on what's a foul, what's violent conduct, what is, and yeah, it's a weird one. But going to St James's, like we said, it's going to be a different style of game up there.
Just to break off slightly, because we're doing this in real time, William Saliba's new contract has just been announced by Arsenal, so we're going to cover that in a minute. But yeah,
Excellent.
as we record this on Tuesday the 30th at 10 o'clock, it has just been announced, and there's a video, so I'm going to be watching that straight afterwards. But that's great news. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Joe, just to cover up on these, again, so let's look at the goals. Newcastle went ahead through Nick Voltermarder, who I'm still a bit out on him. He looks okay. He's not an Alexander Isak, is he? He's a very different striker. He's much more of a archetypal striker, I would say. Very tall, very lanky, physically powerful, but he's going to get goals, isn't he? You can tell.
Yeah, 100%. He looks a handful, doesn't he? And I like how they touched on it. I was quite disappointed with the goal, because I feel like if Gabriel's just big and strong like he is in the opposition box there, he clears the ball and deals with it. But the very sort of felt a hand on his back and went down, and it wasn't even a push for me, mate. It was Waldemar putting his hand out to just allow that bit of space, and Gabriel's obviously felt it and just gone down. I don't think it was necessary.
I think he knew he was beaten, didn't I? think he probably felt he was beaten. Voltermarder had the run on him. He knew it as well. There's a clip on Match of the Day where they were saying, Voltermarder, when they initially took the corner, ran from the inside the penalty box outside and back in. And Gabriel said track that, but obviously I think it was Timber did not track it properly, and so obviously he knew he was out of position, so he did what probably he felt the only thing I could do, which is he's got a run on me. I'm going to have to try and
see
if I
mean
if
that is the case, I kind of accept that. I think, do you know what, fair enough. If that's the case, if in the time he thought, do you know what, I'm not going to get this header, so the best option is to try and buy a foul here and just then
see
that's
if
fine. Obviously, it didn't work out for us, and they got the goal. But yeah, I would have liked to see a bit sort of stronger defending there. But
yeah, and look, Voltermarder is a huge figure. 6'6", only Dan Burn towers him, but he was going to always get above Gabriel unless Gabriel made it difficult, and so it proved. And Newcastle went ahead. I don't think it was deserved, to be honest. I think we had dominated the game there, but the game continued, and it was looking like it for about until the 86th minute, like we weren't going to score. And then obviously the goal came from our substitute, who we have lambasted just a little bit, but we do love him, Mikel Merino. And this was actually some really good play from a corner as well, where we, did what pretty much Newcastle did, which was, play it short, try to create some space, and then the ball came in, and it was a really good header. One of those headers where you go, if it was too powerful, it would have bounced straight out. If it was too less, then Pope would have got it. But it was absolutely perfect, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah, like you said, mate, it was the perfect header. It was just a really, really good ball again from Declan Rice, which is standard now, really. Just really whipped in, like, nice and flat. And Marino, he is an absolutely outstanding header of the ball. He's got a really good ability to kind of know where to position himself, what kind of contact's needed. I just think he's really, really good in the air, mate. And that header, to kind of get the sort of finesse on it, if you like, and just go like divert it just into that far corner, unstoppable. Really, really good header. And I love the reaction as well. Celebration, and then you obviously saw Declan Rice say, "No, we're not done. Let's go." And you see the whole team running back, and I absolutely love
And
that change in
I
attitude.
like that, Joe. I want that. I want that in the 86th minute. We've scored. It's not about, oh, that's relief. Get back on it, and we've got
Mm.
8 minutes, which we did have. Let's go and win this, because we knew. I think we knew, didn't we, that we had them on the ropes. We'd had them the whole game, but we knew that if we put the pressure, which we did, they would crumble, and it did, didn't it, Joe? Effectively.
Yeah, I think that once you get that goal, I think if you've got the time, I think if you've got, I would say, if you've got 10 minutes, that is more than enough time to kind of keep the pressure on. And you kind of know in games like that that you always get one more chance. You're always going to get one more sort of half chance, maybe if you're lucky, a clear chance, but there's always one more in that game. So yeah, we had more than enough time to do it, and in the end, we did it.
And it came from actually Nick Pope not holding the ball, which a lot of Newcastle content creators, I've been watching, I have enjoyed my hate watch. I've been watching a load of these things. I have to shout out one of, the reactions videos. If you watch on YouTube, there's a reaction, the ones with all the reactions.
Mm.
The timing of it, as soon as it comes out, because you want that instant hit of, I want to see what the reactions are. It comes out nearly almost an hour afterwards, and it's amazing. So shout out to those creators. But it came from Nick Pope not holding the ball and literally kicking it out. It went quite flat, was intercepted, and obviously we created the chance that got us the corner. And obviously they defended well from the corners for most of the game. But this one, the ball in, Martin Odegaard, who'd come on and actually had a very big influence on the game
Mm.
since he came on. Really good high whipped in ball, and Gabriel, what a header. He hasn't had one for a while, and he's been like
Mm.
the focal point. But it was a great header, and what a moment. You could see on Eze's face. He, as a fan, Eze was literally bouncing straight away. William Saliba, as usual, who we're going to come to in a minute. All of them were so gassed, wasn't it? They knew that was a big goal in the title race, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it was outstanding, mate. And obviously, just before that, we had the Newcastle potential penalty shout with the
Yeah, we're going to cover that in a
Gabriel.
minute. I want to cover the
Are
penalties
we
together because
right? Say no more. We'll come back to that then. But no, it was Nick Pope obviously trying to get the ball up the pitch to, I think it was Anthony Elanga, wasn't it, who was on his
yeah,
bike. He's obviously seen an opportunity to get him away in behind. Um, Obviously, his execution of that kick was dreadful, and I think that's ultimately what cost him for the goal. I think that was probably still in his head when he's sort of trying to get through the bodies to get to the ball to kind of redeem himself. But Saliba did a fantastic job, and I've noticed what we're doing in a few games now, which is quite a good tactic. Is we're not standing on the keeper when we're setting up for corners. We're just leaving the keeper alone. And what's happened is, as sort of the ball, or as Saka, Odegaard, Rice, whoever it
yeah.
is, as they sort of start their run up to whip it in, Saliba, who majority of the time will then make his move to get in front of the keeper. So there's none
He
of
did it
that
really
kind
quickly,
of.
didn't he? He just appeared straight. He knew what he was going to do,
It's
but
a
he appeared really quickly.
Yeah, it's a really good tactic, mate, because obviously if you stand on the keeper, there's a lot of pushing and shoving, and it alerts the referee that there's something going on there. And I think that can sometimes influence the referee to give a decision if a goalkeeper does struggle to get through a crowd. He thinks, oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, they've been pushing and shoving before, so there must have been an incident there. Whereas this way, everything's in real time, and the referee isn't looking for, he's not sort of subconsciously looking for that contact because it's not been there. So it's a really smart sort of setup that we've got on the corners. And
And it was
obviously,
minimal contact. Do you know what he did? What I really liked, it wasn't pushing or shoving into the back of the
no,
goalkeeper. It was blocking off his view. He used his frame because he knows William Saliba is probably the biggest frame-wise out of most of them, apart
mm,
from Victor Gyökeres. But he just put himself to blindside him almost and stop him
mm,
from getting a clear view of the ball, and that's what made it really good. It's not. I don't think it's like we used to do, where you tug on where Ben White is tugging on the keeper or something like that. It is just being really cute almost in terms of you come in at the last minute, and there's nothing wrong with that, is there?
No, like you said, mate, with Saliba as well, that 6'4" frame, he's a difficult man to get out of the way. If you're coming for a ball and you're trying to navigate your way around players, if you've got sort of a Sandy Cazorla in front of you, it's probably quite easy to step over him. But with someone like William Saliba, you're not getting around him because he's too big and he's too strong. So it's a really smart sort of ploy that I think Jova's kind of done again, if you like. And yeah, Gabriel, brilliant header. He's the man you always rely on in them situations. And to win the header in the area when, like you said, you've got players like Watermada, Dan Burn, monsters on that pitch, for him to still get there shows his ability as well, just to read a flight of a ball and get on the end of it. And you could tell from the players' reaction, the fans' reaction. Gary Neville's crying on the commentary.
That was so funny.
Oh no,
No.
Just the disappointment, mate. It made it even better, and it felt huge because it was a game where we played so well. And I think if we hadn't have got anything out of it, I think we would have all been quite pleased with the performance. But there would have been a massive air of it's another opportunity. Liverpool have dropped points and we've not capitalised, and it's things like that play on your mind. And I think, like we said, you could tell from everyone's reaction that was a massive, massive result. And like we said, what could have been, if both games finished in the 85th minute, the point would have been the gaps, would have been 8 points. Now it's only 2. So it's a huge swing. Only 6 games in. It's a big moment. We've had City away, City at home, United away, Liverpool away, Newcastle away. We've won 4 out of the 6. Drawn 1, lost 1. I think that's a really good return on what's a difficult start.
That's an excellent return.
Considering we're blooding in 8 new players as well, mate. It's a really good return. And now the next sort of step for this team is to go into the games that, like we said, are a little bit kinder, and let's put a run together of some wins and really, really sort of transfer the pressure over to Liverpool, who have got a bit of a difficult run now.
Yeah, because this was the point. Look, we didn't lose the title in the big games last year. Our record in the big games was excellent. Where we lost the title was in the lesser games, the West Ham, which is coming up this weekend, where we dropped points. Fulham, all of these games. This is where Victor Gyökeres, I feel, needs to show his value. We're going to cover Victor Gyökeres in a second. But this is where you want him to do his business, because the big games, I think he had an excellent game this weekend, actually. I thought he was linking up better. He was such a pest to the Newcastle defence. I thought his physicality was really good. And I thought his actual overall play deserved a goal. He actually should have scored, but he slipped. And I think that's still something he's still trying to work out, making sure. But it was a lot better from Victor Gyökeres. But this is the kind of games that are coming up that you're saying, this is where I want you. This is where I want you to start scoring, to make trouble. Because West Ham, no offense, I watched them last night. It's still not it's still not, Nuno Espirito Santos will do well with them, but they're not ready yet. And they're going to come up against us straight away. And they do well typically, but we should be absolutely looking at these games and saying, we need to win these to get the points that we need to stay in contention. This is where we lost the title last year, isn't it, Joe? We have to, getting through these 6 games, as you said, 4 wins, 1 loss to an unreal free kick from Dominic Szoboszlai, and then 1 draw against Man City, which, again, we still dominated. I think we've come through a very tough period with good haul of points, but as well, a lot of belief in that we are there for the title, aren't we?
Yeah, mate, like we said, you've navigated 6 games, 4 of them very difficult, and you've got 4 wins out of it. So really, really good. 2 points up on the corresponding fixtures last year, which obviously is a good sort of indicator of improvement. And like we said, going into this next batch now, the likes of your Fulhams, your West Hams, games like that where we have typically struggled for whatever reason, they're the ones now that are going to make the difference. That's where we now need to go and get the wins. Palace is obviously coming up as well. We've seen they are no mugs. They're having a really good start to season, really strong. Yeah. Obviously Spurs soon as well, but I think they're games that we should be, if we want to be title winners come May, they're fixtures that we should be looking at saying we have got to win them. Yeah, okay, you might be able to sort of maybe have a draw in amongst them, but realistically, we should now, with the squad we have, with sort of the options we're able to call upon, we've got to go into them games now, get a good run of wins under our belt, and just put the pressure back on Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, Liverpool. If I look at Liverpool's fixture list, it is starting. You know,
They've got, I
it,
think their next 5 is sort of a bit tricky.
so
There's a
look,
few
they've got
good, few,
Galatasaray. They've got Galatasaray away coming this week. That's a cauldron, and Galatasaray are a very good side now. With Victor Osimhen, they're not gonna. It's not. They're no mugs. This weekend, Chelsea. Chelsea, I don't
no,
know what to make, but they're gonna. That's not easy. Liverpool, Man United. Oh God, yeah, Liverpool are going to turn them over for that one. That's pretty there. But then you've got you've still got awkward games. You've got West Ham. No, sorry, I'm looking at it wrong. Just give me a second. Why is it not showing me properly? There it is. So then you've got Eintracht Frankfurt, Brentford versus Liverpool, Liverpool Crystal. You got Liverpool Crystal Palace again. Liverpool, Aston Villa, then Man City, Liverpool coming up. These are
mm,
not easy games. They'll still do well out of it, but we've got the
mm,
chance now to make this closer and be in the room, as people call it, in these
mm.
fixtures coming up, don't we, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, they've had a fairly, what do you say, comfortable, maybe not the right term, but they've had a
A
nicer
lot of
set of
home
fixtures to
games.
start the season than we've had.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and obviously, given that the form they've been in, they've not been outstanding. I know they've nicked some games with, obviously they've got quality squad, quality players, so they've nicked late results. But I think what the Palace result does as well, it shows that yes, Liverpool are capable of doing that, but other teams can do it to Liverpool as well. And I think that will give teams a bit of confidence to think, because I think if Liverpool had gone and won, they kind of was getting that air of, "Man, you just can't beat them. Whatever they do, they get a late goal, they get wins." Whereas this result, I think everyone just kind of, it gives everyone a bit more confidence when they play Liverpool, and I think it knocks Liverpool a little bit. And I think that kind of air of invincibility around them has been shot now. Um, so teams will be more confident going up against them. Don't get me wrong, I'd still expect Liverpool to win most of them games coming up, and I'd still expect them to get a good points haul. But I do think that they will potentially find the next few fixtures quite tricky. Few difficult games coming up, and we've got to be looking to pounce and get past them and put a gap between ourselves and them to really kind of put the pressure on. So when they go to, or when they play Man City, sorry, the pressure is on them because there's a gap behind us from where we've sort of clocked up wins. And I think that's important now.
Yeah, we have to take advantage here. We have to push on. Joe, two big controversies in the game, for eyesight. First one, Victor Gyökeres being taken out by Nick Pope. And I'm going to say taken out. There's some debate about if Nick Pope, was, actually meant it. I think he did. I don't think there was any doubt about it. And it's been, it's gone to the VAR. And then Jared Gillett, who is the referee for this game, has gone to the monitor and said that the goalkeeper played the ball. I am honestly flabbergasted with this decision because he got a touch. I'm not disputing that, but he absolutely went in to go and, you know, try, he impeded Victor Gyökeres, didn't he? Gyökeres, was trying to get past him. The ball deflected onto Nick Pope. He didn't put, and then he still went through him, didn't he? He didn't stop. He still went through him. And it just echoes of the Robert Sanchez, the William Saliba incident where they still get touches, but we got red carded for it. There was red cards issued for those and penalties, yet this one was waved off. And there's now extra controversy this morning that the VAR audio kind of lends itself in that VAR decided to get involved in what was not a clear and obvious error, because that's what VAR's remit is. VAR's remit is to only intervene in clear and obvious errors. The onside decision, the on-field decision was penalty. But was it clear and obvious? For me, Joe, I'm again, this is the PGMOL re-refereeing every decision, especially for Arsenal. Especially in this game, it just felt like every decision of ours was being VAR'd, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, again, mate, like I kind of said at the top, I don't know anymore what's a penalty, what's not a penalty, what's there's just no consistency at all with any kind of decision. And I think that kind of sums it up, is that as fans, you just don't know what decision's coming anymore. Like, obviously, the Gyökeres one, we'll speak more about the Gabriel, but even that, like, I had no idea what they was going to do because there's just no consistency around anything that they do. For me, I I would I would have said it's a penalty. But for me, because I know obviously Joe Hart had a bit of discussion on Match of the Day around um, Pope plants his foot and then Gyökeres crashes into him. But Pope was running forwards, so you don't just instantly stop when your foot
Yeah,
touches the
exactly.
floor.
How
Your momentum is
what you
still
plant
carrying you
yourself all of a sudden?
forwards.
Oomph! I'm right here. No, he
That's what I
didn't.
mean.
He
Like
came
you
for
put
him.
the anchor down and just stop exactly where you are. It doesn't work like that. So, I mean, Joe Hart's part of the goalkeepers union, so he's going to say it's not a penalty, obviously. But yeah, for me, it's definitely a penalty because he he's even if he does get a slight touch on the ball, which he does, Gyökeres,
He got to Gyökeres got to the
if he
ball,
doesn't
didn't he? He
make
got to the ball first.
if he doesn't make contact with Gyökeres, Gyökeres is just going to roll the ball into the empty net. So yes, he might have got a toe on the ball. Nick Pope, sorry, might have got a toe on the ball, but he hasn't sort of affected the outcome, if you like, of what would happen if he doesn't touch Gyökeres. For me, if Gyökeres goes round and slides the ball into an empty net, you would think. So for me, it's a penalty. But like I said, with PGMOL, who knows anymore what is and what isn't, and this clear and obvious, that means nothing anymore because, like you said, the audio from the decision was very much coaching Jared Gillett into what decision he should make. It wasn't a discussion around what decision it was. They were telling him that shouldn't, more or less, that should not be a penalty.
And I
If
find
you
that
haven't,
galling because VAR is there only when it's obvious that it's made a mistake. There was no obvious mistake, was there? The on-field decision was good. It's only when you micromanage the whole thing and you look at everything and you make your interpretation. That's again, it's interpretation, isn't it? And you should allow. And now the rule is, as I'm led to believe, Joe, you tell me otherwise. The on-field ref is the one who makes the initial decision. If it's not obviously wrong, then it sticks. But it didn't this time. He just, as you said, they coached him into saying it was wrong completely. And I don't know why that would be because I don't think last year William Saliba in the was it the Bournemouth or the Brighton? Which game was it where he headed
Brighton
the
away,
ball?
is it? Brighton.
Brighton away, headed the ball, and that was deemed a penalty, even though it was a legitimate touch. So where's the consistency in the refereeing standards? Every week, Joe, we find something in some game that's just saying the standard of refereeing is so poor. And there's no accountability because nothing will happen to Jared Gillett. He is now ref three of 4 games in the Premier League for us. And he is a known Liverpool supporter. That's controversial to me in one sense. But 3 of 4 games is not acceptable in terms of being fair, unbiased. I'm just concerned that, and if we win the title, it'll make it all the more sweet because we're fighting against some heavy forces, aren't we, Joe, effectively? And I'm not trying to be controversial. Just from as a fan, it just looks like from the outside in, we are fighting an uphill battle at the moment almost.
Yeah, I mean, the PGMOL and the referees, it just smacks of incompetence to me at the moment. Smacks of confusion over what their roles are, what what decisions need to be made, what decisions need to be left alone. It just appears that it's in a mess and nobody knows what to do really. I think they have a lot to answer for, but they won't because they don't have anyone to answer to. So it will just carry on as it is. But I mean, this clear and obvious nonsense that they keep coming out with. If it takes you sort of 5 minutes to come to a decision, you have to look at 4 replays, slow it down to crawling sort of speed, look at it again from another 3 angles. Then you finally come to your decision once you've kind of sort of had a chat with whoever's sitting in the bus, truck, bin, whatever it is they're sitting in. And then obviously when we're reviewing it after the game, everyone's just so flabbergasted. And no sort of every kind of pundit I've heard has said it's a stonewall penalty. How's it not a penalty? Except for Joe Hart, obviously. But it's just not. This clear and obvious thing is complete nonsense. It's not. It doesn't mean anything anymore. And as long as it's going like it, every weekend's a lottery, mate. Basically, the only way you're going to avoid this is if you literally don't go near anyone in the penalty area. That's the only way you can avoid sort of controversy, and obviously you can't play football like that. But we just have to hope that we're fortunate to be on sort of the right end of more decisions than not, because typically we haven't been. And come the end of the season, hopefully it doesn't decide sort of a title or a relegation, but ultimately at some point it will.
Yeah, and that's the worry that, it's gonna have such an influence and there's no accountability that
Mm.
where's the repercussions gonna come in? The other incident, which is Newcastle are looking at, is the Gabriel handball, and this was on a tackle, Ante Elanga had a shot and Gabriel was sliding in, and they say his arm was in an unnatural position. I don't view it as that because when you slide tackle, and as we played the game, to create your momentum, you have to raise your arm to effectively create that almost slide action, don't you, Joe? You've played the game. I've never seen someone slide across with their arms to their sides almost. I don't think you can do that. It's not a natural action. As well as that, it ricocheted off Gabriel's shin onto his arm. So it wasn't exactly like it was deliberate, was it, Joe?
No, like I said, mate, the sort of that touch off of the shin is, I think, what saved him. For me, even without that touch, I would argue, like you said, that his arm, when making a slide tackle, that is a natural position for your arms to be in. So I think we got very lucky, because I think without that touch off of his leg, I think at St James's Park that gets given as a penalty. Um, Rightly or wrongly, obviously you can debate. For me personally, if you're going to make a slide tackle, your arms are going to be out. Your arms are going to be kind of up, because obviously you need to create a bit of momentum to make the slide tackle. So your arms are going to be there. And for me, when making a slide tackle, that is a natural position. But I just feel like the way the game is refereed, referees don't seem to understand sort of the game itself. I think if you ask anyone who's played the game, they would all say, well, his arms up, yes, but when making a side tackle, that's kind of your arms do that. It's sort of a natural position. But referees don't seem to understand that. They just then there needs to be, I think, for this to be improved, I think that you need to have ex players involved in this kind of decision making process, because referees clearly don't understand it. And ultimately, if that had been given as a penalty, I wouldn't have been surprised. Not because I think that it's a 50-50, just because I think they're so incompetent. There was a part of me that thought, even when looking at the replays, I thought they might give this. And your kind of heart's in your mouth. You're thinking, we've worked so hard to get back into this game. Should have had a penalty ourselves. Is the VAR now going to go the other way and give Newcastle a penalty that shouldn't be? And it was a really horrible kind of sort of 30 seconds that felt like half an hour that sort of replay went over. But yeah, it's like we said, mate, PGM is grossly incompetent, and it will affect someone heavily this season, be it a Champions League spot, a relegation, a Europa League spot, a title winner maybe. It's going to have an influence, unfortunately, at some point, and it's going to cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, I agree. Um, let's switch gears, Joe, a little bit. So we're going to talk about Olympiacos in a second, our game on Wednesday against Olympiacos. But obviously, we just touched upon it in real time. William Saliba's contract has just been announced officially by Arsenal. 5 more years. We touched upon this already, Joe, but
Mm.
this is very good news, isn't it? To sign one of the world's best defenders for 5 years into his peak years,
Mm.
committed, and there's the likelihood is there's more contracts on the way, which is what Andrea Burton needs to be doing. We don't want the controversy of what we had in the Wenger years, which was down to the last year, and we're anxious about what's happening. We want these done and dusted so that it doesn't affect the on-field, team, does it really?
Yeah, Berta's flying. He's doing a fantastic job with these contracts, mate. We mentioned in the preview show all the other players who've had new contracts done, how we're kind of getting this team locked in for their sort of peak years. Like you said, Saliba, one of the best centre backs in the world, only 24, now signed up for another 5 years. In
Do you think he'll be the
obviously
best?
him,
Do you think he'll be? Do you think he will be the best defender by that time? Like when he gets to 29,
there's
will he
nothing
be
to
the
stop him.
best?
Absolutely nothing stopping him. He could. That is not a sort of outlandish hot take. That is something I think most people would kind of predict. He's got all the attributes already. He's only going to get better. We've seen defenders kind of peak sort of late 20s. That's where we're heading with him. Obviously, him staying is massive and keeping him is massive. But what this also does, mate, is that if he does have any ambitions to go to Real Madrid, if Real Madrid really want him, you're going to have to pay for him, and that's how it works.
Real Madrid don't pay. Real Madrid don't pay those kind of fees.
But this is the thing now, mate. If you want him, you're now having to buy him off us. There's no, oh, his contract's up in a year. We'll give him sort of 50% of the money, or we'll wait. No, if you want William Saliba, you have got to pay top dollar. So we're sort of brilliant to have Saliba signed up from the playing point of view, but from the club's point of view, really good business, really smart. Obviously, if Mosquera develops how well he does, potentially, if you're looking to sell Saliba in a few, sort of get his peak years out of him, win some trophies, and he then wants to go, fine. Give us 150, 200 million. Mosquera's ready to come in and do a job. So really good planning from the club. Excellently done. Hopefully Saka's next. I think he's there's a lot of talk around him now being sort of the focus of the contract situation, which would be great. And just, yeah, obviously I hope Saliba stays here for the rest of his career and has a sensational career and wins us loads of trophies. But yeah, we're in a fantastic position, and the good news just keeps on coming.
I love his video. Did you see that video where they said, that they asked him, so you had that French connection, and did everyone wanted to, did you just wear Arsenal shirts all the time? He said, yeah, I was the only one. Everyone wanted Barcelona, Real Madrid, I wanted. And he touched his shirt like this, Arsenal. He loves it. He loves it. And I'm going to watch this contract video.
In that deep voice.
His voice is so, when you hear, it's like the Wenger one, isn't it?
Soothing tones.
So, Joe, moving on, very good news about William Saliba. We're going to focus now on the Champions League, which returns tomorrow. Well, it returns tonight, technically, because I'll be watching that, obviously. But our game tomorrow at the Emirates, Olympiacos, Greek champions, and have caused us issues in the past. Let's be honest, we have had issues with them in the past, and they have got some decent players. I mean, if we look at it, they've got their central striker Mediterranean is an absolute class player. I rate him highly. But we should be looking to get 3 points from this, shouldn't we, Joe? I mean, we got the first 3 points from Athletic Bilbao away, tough opening fixture. But at the Emirates, we should be looking to get 3 points and put in a good performance, shouldn't we, Joe?
Yeah, 100%, mate. This is a game where I'd like to see a bit of rotation again. I think potentially give Odegaard the start. Obviously, he's come off the bench at the weekend. If he's fit, get him on, get him an hour or so. Ben White, obviously, get him in, give Timber a rest again. Just a nice bit of rotation. Obviously, Saliba could start this one. Just rotate. Not obviously the entire 11, but just Newcastle's a tough game. Obviously, a big physical output into that game. And with how the game finished, a lot mentally went into that game as well. So it'd be good just to rotate out. I think playing at home allows us the opportunity to do that. Just rest a few of the legs. Should still have more than enough to go and get the win in this game, and then all eyes on the weekend. But I don't think, I know, like you said, mate, we struggled previously against them with some of our more questionable squads that we've built over the years. But this squad should be more than capable of dispatching this Olympiacos side with, I wouldn't say minimal effort, but there should be a sort of 70-75% should be enough to sort of see these off fairly comfortably.
And they have won, they've won, they won, they won a European competition recently. Which one was it? But they are an awkward customer, aren't they? They won the Conference League in 23-24, so they've got the pedigree there, and they've been a mainstay for a long time in Europe. Got some good players like Daniel Podence, as I mentioned, Mediterranean. There really is some talent there. But again, we need the 3 points. We need to keep this, it's almost a league format now, isn't it? If effective, it's a league in itself, a parallel league. And you want to ensure that you have that consistency every week. As you said, we want to rotate because West Ham's coming at the weekend. And as we've talked about, you want to keep every win. But we have to be aware that this is not going to be an easy game. I think people thinking of this as a home banker, it's not. It's always been a tough one. They will set up really well because Greek sides typically do. But again, we should be demonstrating that we can get through. You've mentioned some changes, Joe. Does Mikel Merino come in for this one, do you think? I think he may do because I think he's something different in this game.
I think potentially maybe bring him in for Rice. Give Rice sort of a bit of a break and maybe go with that kind of. Does Norgard come in as well? Maybe. I think Norgard's a good shout. I think Norgard is a good shout because he's a steady performer, isn't he? He's not going to change anything. I think Miles Lewis-Skelly's certainly a contender for me because I think Ricardo Cavallo-Freire didn't have his best game against Newcastle. And so
Miles looked a lot better when
I was going to say, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you think that this side could look sort of closer to the Port Vale game than it did the Newcastle game potentially? Or do you think that's too much
Yeah,
change?
I think so. I think so because I I get the feeling Mikel Marino's a very good European performer. He does better, and his threat at set pieces is very good. I don't think you can get rid of Victor Gyökeres, and this is a game made for Victor Gyökeres, I feel, because it's that kind of not his level, but he needs goals. He needs the confidence. So I
Mm,
think he is gonna. I think he has to start. Bukayo Saka, I think, will start, but there's a inkling that we have to nurse him in games, and we'll have to take him
mm,
out quite early. Centre backs. Oh, Mosquera's done nothing wrong, as you said, Joe. I think he'll start, but it's who his partner is. I think it might be Gabriel because you just need that solidity. But I think, yeah, Miles Lewis, Skelly, Ben White is not a bad shout. Martinelli probably will start. There's just a few questions, but I certainly think there's going to be a lot of rotation in this one. But not anything
mm,
that, as we said, nothing that detriments the squad too much because it's already so cohesive. And if
mm,
Nketiah was available, I would be tempted to start him as well because you need to give him
mm.
minutes. But apparently he's not that close, so you might see him on the weekend. But yeah, we should still have enough with the squad that we have. Even if we have to bring on some, first teamers like Rice, etc., we should
Mm.
still be solid and be able to get the goals. Look, it's not going to be a free-flowing performance. I don't think so. Champions League games are very rarely like that. But
Mm.
we should still have enough to beat this team, shouldn't we?
Yeah, like we said, with the rotation option we have now, mate, we've essentially now, I think, got two starting 11s. So I think you can rotate and not have the level drop too much. Um, I think even with rotation, we should have too much for Olympiacos. Personally, like we said, I know they won sort of the Conference League and they'll set up in a sort of a very disciplined way. But I think realistically, we should be dispatching them. If we're serious about winning this competition, they shouldn't really be causing us any issues. Again, it might be a game where it's a bit of a kind of a slowish start, if you like, and not much happening, but we should sort of power through later on in the game, I think, when we are able to bring on some subs, make some changes. And yeah, I would fully expect us to win this, mate, without overexerting ourselves, to be honest.
So give me a score, Joe. What are you going for this game?
I'm going to go 3-0 to the Arsenal, mate.
Ooh, not overexerting, but still getting a decent result. I'm going
I,
to go
I,
2
I
0.
think I think it'll be. I think coming off the back of that game on Sunday, I think the confidence will be sky high. And I think back in front of the fans will be energised because of that result as well. And I just think it'll be, well, hopefully, I think it'll be a bit of a perfect storm of confidence, exuberance from the fans. And I think it'll be a good game. And I think we'll have plenty of the ball, plenty of possession. And I think I think we should be able to pick apart the
I also
Olympiacos.
forgot Martin Odegaard's available as well. I think he may
Mm.
start this game, won't he? Because he
Wanyeri as
needs the
well wasn't in the
minutes.
squad at the weekend. Would he come in maybe sort of to rotate with Saka, maybe on that side rather than a Dowman?
Maybe,
I don't
yeah,
know,
but
but again, mate, it's a lovely problem we've got is that me and you, and I think most other fans, are really unable to pick the starting 11 with any sort of confidence now
yeah.
because we've got so many options, and that's just a brilliant place to be and somewhere we've not been as a club for years and years.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll look towards the game on Wednesday, hopefully get a good result, sets us up well for Saturday. We're going to cover, obviously, the West Ham game and look back at the Olympiacos game in our preview show, hopefully on a Friday.
Mm.
It depends on our schedules. But Joe, I think we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me and looking back and looking forward at the latest Arsenal matches. If you're enjoying the content, please do consider subscribing, keep listening, watch the videos, check out our feed on X. We really do appreciate all your support. Our recent episode with Tom Canton, which is amazing, has actually, is our highest rated episode, as it should be. But we want to keep it going. We want to keep the content coming for you. So thank you, everyone, for listening. We really do appreciate it. Keep listening. We'll catch you on the next one of Red Lines, Half Spaces. Bye for now.